Hey everyone, welcome to the video, and if you are a regular subscriber or a regular viewer of the channel, you'll know that I've had the privilege of shooting with one of my regular clients, Third Space. Some of you might have actually come from some of the behind the scenes videos that I've shared on shoots with them on this channel. Today I'm really excited to show you all the stages of our recent January campaign. So from pre-production and planning to actually shooting it, to then preparing the images to put them out into the world, where they were used on billboards and in the gym and on social media. So I hope you enjoy, and let's get into the video. Okay, so the first stage is pre-production, and once we'd locked in fees and dates, this stage is all about identifying the concept and the desired output, but also what is key here is to identify any roadblocks or potential pitfalls that we might experience throughout the shoot. One of the big things we had to consider in the shoot was the tagline, which was The Great Escape. So the theme of the shoot was all about escaping the gloomy British winter to a space which is relaxing and invigorating, such as the Third Space gyms. So in pre-production, myself and the client jumped on a call with an agency that they work with. So the agency handles a lot of the design aspects of how the gym is going to process the assets that we create on things like video shoots and photography shoots. And they'll handle all the graphic design elements. So things like creating the copy and actually designing and framing the copy around the images. What's really good about having these conversations before a shoot is that the agency can kind of get across the space and the framing that they need in the image to allow for their desired text to fit over it. The design agency could share a PNG with me, and that way when we're shooting tethered, we can overlay the tagline on the images live as we're shooting them, and we can see the framing and make sure that everything is correct. So there's a lot of things to consider there, because the text was white, so obviously we don't want it sitting against a white background. So like in some of the yoga shots, we had a window, and ideally you don't want the text covering over the window because the text is just going to wash away and lose its impact. So the great benefit of shooting tethered there is that as we're shooting, we can adjust, reframe and make any amendments that we need to make sure that there's not going to be any unexpected surprises when it comes to post-production further down the line, where it might be a lot more difficult to make these adjustments. Before going into any shoot and in pre-production, my desired goal is to almost have the picture, at least in my head, taken before we even step on set. So that's not to over plan and not to get everything too rigid, and sort of you want to allow an amount of wiggle room on the day to kind of get those spontaneous moments and things, but you also want to make sure that whatever the client's desired outcome is, you've kind of already got that in the bag and you've got everything planned as much as you can. So when it comes to shooting on the day, the first shot, the key shots, are easy to get. And then that gives you that extra time to kind of have a play around and get those spontaneous moments that might just throw up things that are really natural, engaging, and a nice extra to have when you come away from the shoot. So this shoot lasted 2 days, and the first shot that we did was the image that we're primarily going to be talking about today, which is this yoga shot. In the background, we have the sun rising, and we have this sort of great view of the O2 Arena, or Millennium Dome, as you might know if you're from the UK, which you can see out the window there. So the key thing for us was to catch a beautiful sunrise. Now, the sun rises pretty fast. If you want to get like that key golden window, it's only a short amount of time that you actually have, especially when you're dealing with an actual window that we have in the background, so the sun is only going to be passing there for a certain amount of time. And one way that gave us a lot of flexibility was to shoot on a tripod and shoot plates as we go. And if you're not familiar with this concept of plates, it basically means you shoot on a tripod, and it gives you this flexibility to empty your frame of the talent and just shoot the background exactly how you desire. Then you can bring your talent back in and light them however you wish. And when it comes to retouching, you can just edit out the lighting and make everything look beautifully balanced. Now, sometimes balancing all these elements is possible in camera, but given time constraints and just to give us a little bit more flexibility in post-production, Shooting plates seemed like the correct way to go. What's also great about this method is then it frees up the rest of our time to try different poses with the model, and at the end of the day we can pick whichever one the client likes best. If we were dealing with just that tiny window where the sun rises, we'd be limited to the amount of poses we could do whilst the sun is in the perfect position. But with plates, we shoot the exposure perfectly and then we put the model back in, so we know we've got the background covered, we've got the perfect sunrise, and now we can just move the model around, get her to run through different yoga poses, and that way we can pick whichever one, or multiples if we needed to. So another element that we needed to tackle on this was also the variety of uses that the client needed these images for. They went from, you know, having them for social media on Instagram to actually out-of-house placements on super wide billboards. I'll put this one on the screen because it's a particularly interesting crop because it's very short but extremely wide. So for this we did another variety of plating, which meant keeping the camera on a tripod, but once we've got our shot, I would pan the camera left, right, up, down. If any of you are familiar with like shooting landscapes, sometimes you can pan a couple of times and stitch them together. Well, this was just an extreme example of that. That gave our retoucher Ollie so much flexibility in post-production. That means he could extend the image really wide, but also really tall. So the tall images would be perfect for like 16:9s and 4:5s for social media. And then the really wide images would cover those quite awkward crops that we would need for the out-of-house placements. So that's pre-production and plating and everything in between covered. I should probably touch on lighting a little bit. So we used 3 lights for this, and quite a simple setup really. 2 Profoto lights, and I had 1 of the Zhiyun LED panels. And basically I wanted to keep the lighting looking as natural as possible. I didn't want it to look as if it had been flashed. That's something that I try and get across in most of my images. I do always use flash, but I want it to still look natural, almost like really good ambient or natural daylight. To do that, I used a strip light behind the model. You can see it in the images here, which is over her right shoulder, and that was to mimic the sunlight that was coming in behind her, to almost give her that backlit look. Now that just catches sort of the edge of her hair and gives her a little highlight on her right hand side on the camera left. And then I tried to give it a feel of the lighting sort of wrapping round her as the light would naturally come in. And to do that I used an octobox, which was sort of 45 degrees to the model on her right hand side, just camera left again. So combining the strip light to give a little highlight coming in from behind her, and the octobox, it gave like a natural sort of wrap around her. Now you might see over her left shoulder, camera right, there is the little Zhiyun strip light, and I've got another video which kind of covers the tech spec of the Zhiyun strip lights. It's my previous video actually, how to film at-home workouts. In the beginning of that video I go over all the different functions of the Zhiyun strip lights. They're really good. Go check that video out if you're interested. Super handy, super really nice light. So anyway, I stuck a little grid on that and just had it behind her, and that's not doing much. That's just catching the edge of her elbow and things, because without that light we found that she was blending into the background a little too much. And just by creating that little highlight on her left shoulder and catching her hair, that just helps her stand out from the background and give her a little extra pop. So hopefully that covers lighting. If you've got any more questions on that, please let me know in the comments below. So I think that's all aspects of the shoot kind of covered there. We've covered pre-production, how we approach things on the day, and then also what went into post-production. The process that I've gone over here for the yoga shot is the same with the sauna shots, the spa shots, and the combat shots. As you can see, if I share them uncropped, they're quite square images, or at least the combat and the sauna room are quite square images. This allows us to do all the various different crops that are needed for, as I mentioned, social media and out of house. I'm really pleased with how these all turned out, and it's been really satisfying to see a lot of these images being used out of house on posters and on screens around London. I'm not sure they're still live by the time you guys see this video, but if you see them in the flesh, please send me a picture or tag me in a story or whatever. I really appreciate seeing them. I haven't been able to get down there and see it myself in the flesh, but Toyin, who was one of our assistants on the day, shout out to Toyin, he went down to Canary Wharf and shot a whole bunch of pictures. So I hope this video gave you an interesting insight into how we approach this, shooting on a tripod, shooting plates. Maybe that's a way that you do normally shoot anyway, or maybe it's a new approach to you and it's something that you're going to try out in the future. If you have any questions, please do let me know in the comments. I get back to every single comment I get on this channel, and hopefully I can sort of provide some knowledge or assistance, or even just throw out any questions to get us all thinking about how we're approaching different shoots. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.